Hello, welcome to the House of Wellness. Always a great pleasure to be standing alongside Joe Stanley, Jacqui Felgate, Dr. Nick Carr, and we are filming today from the beautiful Royal Botanic Gardens in Cranbourne.
It is so beautiful here. Can I say Happy New Year? Or, well, new financial year, that is. It is time to get our books in order.
And it's been a really stressful time, I think, for some people. The rising cost of living, increasing interest rates, and just the cost of everyday food items, it's certainly been dominating the headlines.
No doubt people are feeling the pinch, Jack, for sure, and particularly around tax time. We know that's often a really stressful time for a lot of people. And a recent Australian survey has confirmed just that. No surprise, tax time is stressful, but with a slight twist.
Well, you're right, Das, because this survey of a whole load of just ordinary everyday Australians showed that, get this, 1 in 5 would prefer to pick up dog poo than fill in their tax return.
I would.
Charming.
Absolutely. I mean, I do it every day, at least 3 times. Other people say that they would rather have small talk with an unpleasant neighbour or sit in the middle seat on a long-haul flight or get a tooth filling.
Do you know what I found really interesting about that same study, though, was that 29% of people actually look forward to doing their taxes. And I was thinking about this, maybe they're just the people who are getting a refund.
I think, Jack, actually, they're the accountants.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not sure many that do that. Now, we are talking financial health a lot today on the House of Wellness, but a little slight deviation for a moment, Joe, if I could. We'll make it a big deviation. One of our other favourite topics is food. Now, I'm talking Aussie specials.
Oh, Aussie food, we're talking vanilla slices, meat pies, a jam tart, or do you love fairy bread, Jack?
I love fairy bread because I have 2 daughters, so I spend half my life for parties making fairy bread. But I'm an expert at this, and I prefer the longer sprinkles rather than the little hundreds and thousands stuff.
Very particular.
I said I'm a connoisseur, also a connoisseur. We found 2 young entrepreneurs who found a way to turn their love of nostalgia and sweet things into an Aussie classic with a twist.
It's hard, some weeks we sell up to, 3,000 Lamingtons a week or more.
Whoa.
And imagine, they're all hand-dipped by someone in Sydney or Melbourne. It's not an easy slog sometimes.
Yeah, you're getting Lamington elbow from all of the dipping.
We need a machine for it, for sure. But
I admit, my entire life, I've taken the humble Lamington for granted. But let me tell you, nailing the perfect lammy is an art form.
we've got a technique which we have to make our Lamingtons. It's a bit of a probably 2-day process to make them. We actually dip them frozen. We don't hide that just because we want to keep them perfectly square.
Yeah.
You want a perfectly square Lamington. You don't want it some weird shape.
Yeah.
Eddie
Stewart's life revolves around the Lamington. It was after a stint selling Aussie goods in his shop in Tokyo that he gave the traditional Aussie lammy a go, and it sold like hotcakes.
Kitchens in Japan work really differently. They work on that absolute perfection and taking a product and perfecting it to the highest degree they possibly can. And I think that's what we've done with Lamingtons. We've taken that humble Lamington and we've elevated, I guess, onto the world stage and created this product which we're proud of and Australia should be proud of, because Lamington, everyone grew up eating a Lamington, but a lot of people grew up eating those ordinary Lamingtons which are dry and then it's not enjoyable or pleasing. So I think from us, anything from Japan was putting that effort and creating the perfect product.
These lammies are an exercise in engineering. Fitting perfectly in the custom-made recycled boxes is no accident. But form without function is useless. Here, flavour is king and begins with perfecting the most basic component.
We literally locked ourselves in a room for about 2 months to get the sponge right. The sponge was the hardest part because, I had people left, right and centre giving advice and I was just like, no, I'm doing it this way. It's got to be that light, spongy. It's also got to have enough stability in it to actually hold that cream and chocolate up and keep the perfect square shape, of course.
Structural integrity is important.
Oh, that's the most stressful part.
I reckon it's the cream that makes or breaks the perfect Lamington, and Eddie's got that covered. Or should I say, filled.
Generally, a Lamington, in a bakery would be an offcut of the previous day's cakes and dipped in chocolate, dipped in coconut to try and sell that. So we take the different approach. We make fresh cake, fresh cream. I think that's a nice difference to us. We've actually got a nice fat layer of cream in the middle. Oh. Makes it tasty.
Fresh sponge and cream, generous lashings of jam, it's all here. And so is every flavour, from the traditional OG to banoffee and fairy bread popcorn. And then there's this.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea how good that smells.
Nothing better than burnt meringue smell.
the Japanese-inspired lami, filled with yuzu curd, fresh cream and dipped in toasted meringue. This is the bomb.
You can see how fragile the meringue is. It doesn't last long. You've got to get in and do it super fast. It starts to break down.
So does that mean I should probably just eat these 10 now?
Absolutely.
Just to get them off your hands? Yeah.
We'll do a little.
Eddie's Lammies are walking out the door, now with 2 stores, one in Melbourne and Sydney, and he's swamped with orders. How's this for numbers?
The biggest single order would have been during lockdown. We sold 4,000 Lamingtons in the span of 40 minutes between 2 states. And that was the most stressful time I've ever had. Other than that, we've done World Lamington Day. That was probably one of our biggest ones in 2021. We sold, I think it was probably about 5,000 Lamingtons that day, if not more.
When is World Lamington Day?
21st of July, which is actually my birthday as well.
Stop it.
I know.
It
It's
was
a
meant
match.
to be.
Yes, it's a match I made in heaven.
It is a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
And while we're talking perfect matches, I think I've found mine.
Yum.
Always love celebrating a great small business Australian success story. Seems that the most reported expenses at the moment are in housing, in fuel and groceries, is where everyone's feeling the pinch as we talk more about financial health.
And, they're not luxury items, Dar, so people are really hurting. In fact, Australia is one of the most expensive countries to live in the world now.
That's right. The average cost of living for a single person is around $3,800 a month, and for a family of 4, it's $7,000, and that really is just the bare essentials.
And so it means, Jack, that a lot of people are trying to find ways to economise. And one thing that you can do that's good for your budget and also for your health is to cut out alcohol and have a dry July.
That is the annual fundraiser that is a great way to clear your head, Nick.
Yeah.
You can save some money, you can raise some money, and at the same time, join in the fight against cancer.
I don't think a lot of people really understand what binge drinking is, or they think that binge drinking is a classification of, 10 or 12 drinks in a sitting. Actually, the classification of a binge drinker in Australia for women is 4 or more standard drinks in one sitting, and for men, it's 5. The difference between a daily drinker and a binge drinker is that binge drinkers often don't drink every day. A binge drinker is someone generally who drinks a lot, drinks quickly, finds it very difficult to moderate, doesn't have an off switch, and is often drinking more than they would want to. And the more they drink, the more quickly they drink, and often can end in blackouts, hazy memories, not remembering how they got home, and waking up feeling ashamed and embarrassed about their behaviour. And that was absolutely me for a long period of time. It started probably as a 16-year-old growing up in Melbourne in the 80s. And unfortunately for me, it was a pattern that I was really unable to break during my 20s, 30s and 40s until I turned 46, and that was when I was able to break through that dysfunctional pattern of drinking for good. I think we're all aware of the binge drinking issue in younger Australians. It's often a rite of passage through our teenage and adult life. But interestingly, the main demographic where binge drinking is actually growing in Australia is women 50 plus. 21% of women between the ages of 45 and 60 are identifying as binge drinking at least once a month. There are pressures coming from juggling careers, families, ageing parents. We've had COVID as well, which put increasing pressure on all the roles that women play. I guess the really important thing is that people start to recognise that it is a huge problem in Australian culture, and that if you do feel worried about your drinking, that there is support out there for you. And it really can just start with doing some reading, listening to some podcasts. And I now coach people specifically in this area around breaking through their dysfunctional patterns of binge drinking. Me choosing an alcohol-free lifestyle has had a huge ripple effect on my life and my family's life and my relationships with certain friends. It has absolutely life-changing. My husband actually took 2.5 years away from alcohol himself during the period. He's now gone back to having a drink every now and again, and that's absolutely fine. And now we're also navigating our teenage sons who are now starting to experiment with alcohol. And again, for me, it's this whole concept of not being judgmental of other people's choices, but really being open about my own experience with binge drinking and role modelling that for me the best choice was actually to step away from alcohol, and that you can have a fun, exciting, joyful, very full life without alcohol.
Well, it's no secret that alcohol consumption actually went up quite a lot during the pandemic.
Yes, with a high proportion of that increase being women aged 30 to 40. They said due to stress, I mean, hello, remote learning and working from home.
Yeah, well, with the pandemic apparently now over, alcohol consumption has been dropping, and actually that's reflected in Australian figures.
And Gen Z are waiting longer. They're actually switching off alcohol full-time and waiting longer to try it.
Seems like they're a smarter generation coming
they might
through,
be.
Jack. Up next on the House of Wellness, money guru Effie Zahos gives us some expert advice on how to get through these tough times. Back after this. Hey, Jack, I've always found it strange that learning about money and finances has never been a big part of the school curriculum. We've always had to teach ourselves by trial and error.
I agree totally. I'm terrible. I feel like most of us learn by fumbling our way through, but I am trying to teach my kids. I'm not very good at it, though.
And it differs, it seems, from generation to generation. The boomers, they tell us, are the ones that are most confident about managing their finances, whereas us Gen Xers, which is me, Jack, carry the most stress and anxiety around finance.
Gen Ys, which is my generation, are apparently pretty good, but millennials, no surprise, they have the most debt because they typically like the extravagant things in life like travel and tech.
Well, the best way is to get educated about anything. And here is money expert Effie Zahos.
We've been through a lot, and for households, for some of us, this is the first time we've seen such a situation. I mean, pandemics don't come often, and it's really thrown budgets, no matter what budget you're on, in chaos. So many of us had to rip open our super funds to actually survive because we don't have cash accounts or a cash cushion, whatever you like to call it. The fact is, quite a lot of us were living from pay to pay. So what the pandemic did is actually expose just how vulnerable we were when it came to our finances. On a positive note, there are solutions. Sometimes they're not ideal. Sometimes they're not quick fixes. In fact, in most cases, they're not quick fixes, but they're the ones that you want to kind of grab on. The beauty about having everything online is everything is online, which can be good or bad. I mean, I like to print out my statement. I have 2 highlighters, 2 different colours. The regular household bills I highlight in one colour. All the discretionary spending I highlight in another. It's a very time-consuming thing to do, but I tell you what, that is going to give you the nudge you need to act, because you'll see all your discretionary spending, all the tap and go we have, because we're not using cash. Our digital footprint is there, and that's going to shock you. Your discretionary spending is usually what undoes a lot of budgets. Now, the other one, your household bills, what you need to do there is once you've highlighted that, you need to ask yourself, what am I paying? And what is the best possible rate? It may not necessarily be the cheapest rate, because sometimes cheap isn't the best. You don't want the cheapest home insurance policy because it may not even cover you for what you need. Most Aussies, for the first time, picked up the phone and said, hey, I'm not happy with my interest rate on my home loan. Can you give me a better deal? Most Aussies, for the first time, had a look at their energy bill and thought, well, what does this mean? Well, we know now that it does mean an extra $1,000 or so because of these rate hikes. We have to find those savings somewhere. So for the first time, people are questioning, what's my lender charging? And the easiest thing there is that, like I always say, get on your bank's website, have a look and see what are they advertising. Chances are they're advertising a cheaper rate to new customers compared to what you're earning. the good old-fashioned budget. I hate to bring that up. It sounds so boring, but it is actually really exciting when you get into it. It's a case of just listing down how much do I earn and where's it going? And then when you realise where it's going, how can I minimise some of that or how can I make the best of what I have? When it comes to budgets, there are so many examples out there. Some people use an envelope system. I know what's online now at the moment, a lot of people are saying, oh, payday, I rush out to the ATM, I get all my cash, I come back home and I put it in envelopes. I love that idea. It's not very safe, but I do like the idea that you've got these envelopes and you know that if you've got a spending envelope and you look at it and there's no more money in there, well, we can't spend anymore. Or maybe you want the zero budgeting method. I personally work on that. Every dollar goes somewhere. So payday happens and it gets dispersed. And the number one thing is you pay yourself first too. You treat your payment to yourself as a bill. If you don't, you're never going to do it. You're going to find some excuse why you won't pay yourself. There are lots of apps like Frollo, CanStar has a budgeting app who I work for. Your bank will have some type of budgeting app and limits and alerts. For me, what I like is some of the apps that help you with your spending and your expenses and cutting down. If you haven't downloaded a fuel app by now, you really are doing yourself a disservice. That's a no-brainer. Download that. Otherwise, you'll just stop wherever and pay whatever. And also, when it comes to fuel, stack your discounts. If you do, say, for example, use Coles discounts and you shop in the store, you can actually stack these and get up to 18 cents off. Grocery apps, there's some really good ones out there. Frugal is one, Half Price is another. So when it comes to debt, it really comes down to what makes you motivated, what gives you the excitement to pay back your debt. And there's a lot of behavioural economics behind that. So I like to kind of, with debts, list them all down, biggest to smallest, put the interest rate next to it. You can either tackle it by the most expensive interest rate, pay that off first, or I like to look at maybe the smallest debt. The reason being why I target that first is because it's achievable. I'll get a result hopefully within maybe a couple of weeks. I can cross it off my list. I feel better. So the idea is once you've listed all your debts down and put them in order from smallest to biggest, then you make just minimum repayments on all of those and then direct all your surplus to that one debt. So you really knock it off fast. Every person has their own method, but as long as you actually have those conversations with yourself, moving forward for a lot of people with their budget, it is going to be tough, but it's going to have to be the case of what's the best I can do with the income that I'm earning.
Up next on the House of Wellness, we check out the incredible video game that gives players a bird's eye view into mental health right after this. We mentioned off the top of the show that people would rather do a range of really unpleasant things, like talking to an annoying neighbour, picking up dog poo, than get involved in their taxes at tax time. Money issues, for a lot of us, cause enormous amounts of stress and anxiety.
Yeah, it's absolutely true, Darcy, because if you've got money problems, then it's not just sleepless nights, relationship issues. It can be much worse. And on the flip side, of course, if you're already struggling with your mental health, with depression or anxiety, it's hard to be motivated to look after your finances.
Yeah, it's really important, I think, to listen to your body, take time out for your mental well-being. You know what I'm really loving is the way schools are teaching our kids meditation and mindfulness, and we're seeing it so much more in books and TV, apps and movies more and more.
Do you remember the Pixar movie Inside Out? It's a
Love
great
it.
film. You
One of our
love
favourites.
it. One of our faves, especially as parents. But it was the first film. It was produced in 2015 to actually make characters' emotions. There was a character joy and even a character fear.
Yeah, we absolutely loved this film. And do you know what? It was one of the first times a major Hollywood studio tackled kids' mental health, and it was so valuable in teaching our kids how to recognise and handle their emotions.
And not just theirs, but understand how other people react as well. It's fantastic.
Yeah, Nick, it's not just the movie and TV industry that are having a go at that as well. Thanks to a new video game, we can do exactly that now, simply by pressing play.
I feel like I've been playing games like since I was really little, and what I really like about games is it's interactive, and as the player, you're the one that's moving the game forward. You're the one that controls what's happening in the game. It gives you an opportunity to walk in the shoes of the characters, like you're that character during that time.
After completing a computer science degree, Michelle Chen took her lifelong love of video games to the next level. Moving from her home country of the Philippines to Taiwan, she scored what seemed like a dream gig developing games for a mobile app company. But she soon found the job didn't meet her expectations.
It was just making games that's to make money, and that wasn't really fulfilling for me. I felt like I wanted to do things more, because I really like games as a medium, and I feel like it has so much potential. I wasn't getting fulfilled. I feel like I wasn't doing anything that was contributing to the world.
As Michelle grew uninspired at work, her mental health began to decline.
I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't do anything. And it's I know there's so much more, so many exciting things that I can do with my life. And I feel like there's that pressure of that potential of where I can be, what I can do. And that just adds more pressure. And that just makes me feel numb. I can't, I know what I want to do. I know what I need to do, but I just can't do it.
Michelle decided she needed to recharge her passion for gaming, so she moved yet again, this time to the UK, to study a master's in video game design.
That was the chance for me to make something that's for me. I don't have to care if this game makes money. I don't care if people would like it or not. It became my way of expressing myself. And so I decided to make a game about depression. So the game is called Depression Simulator. So it's about living the life of somebody with depression. So it's just going through their everyday life. But every little task becomes a challenge. How do you wake up in the morning, making breakfast, or just going through your day. So every little task is a puzzle. With that game, it was actually my first time telling people how I was feeling. I was actually really scared showing that game to people because I feel like before, I don't really talk about things. I hide a lot, I smile a lot, and I have tendency to just wear a mask and just be happy all the time. And that's my way of showing hey, this is me, this is what I feel. This is a part of me, but this is not all of me. And through that experience, I got to know a lot of other people who were also going through the same thing, and I didn't feel so alone. And in a way, that gave me a sense of comfort.
The Depression Simulator proved so therapeutic for Michelle and her peers that she decided to push the concept a step further. In 2019, she moved to Melbourne to study a PhD at RMIT, with the end goal of creating not one, but 5 mental health video games.
So for the PhD, it's a bit different approach. So with the master's, it was pretty much focused on what I was going through. For the PhD, I wanted to represent more people, more experiences. So I invited young people, 18 to 25-year-olds with lived experiences of depression and anxiety, to have a semi-structured interview where I invited them to share their stories. And then we had this game jam workshops. So game jams is an event wherein we make a game in a very short amount of time.
I'm making a loop-based horror game. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about it, actually.
Scaring people?
I was really interested in the Mental Jam project just because of, I guess, the idea of women in game development and tackling more sensitive topics around mental health, mental illness, and hopefully being able to reach out to people who might be quite isolated.
And it was really nice, talking to other people with similar experiences as well with mental health too, while creating something.
Each of the Mental Jam games, which are now free to play online, creatively explores common mental health challenges, including stress, self-doubt, and social anxiety.
Definitely, all my experiences definitely informed my writing for the project, especially my experiences working dead-end jobs in pretty toxic environments, my experiences coping with that in isolation and maybe being surrounded by people who weren't providing the most conducive environment to healing.
Some of the players, they said that they were able to relate to a lot of the contents of the game. Like, yeah, they also went through this experiences, and knowing that real people made the game about their experience made them realize, like, yeah, the people who made this game also went through the same thing I did. And like, maybe people who don't have a depression or anxiety, they can understand it a bit more. And when they encounter somebody, or if their friends opened up to them and were struggling, they would be a bit kinder because they kind of understand it more. They're like, yeah, I know it's hard. Like, maybe I don't know exactly, but they can be a bit more empathetic. In the future, I hope to keep making games with people and keep inviting people to make games with me and use games as a medium to share their stories. And maybe not just mental health, like all of their experiences. I want to turn something bad, something that's a bad experience, into something good.
What a brilliant game. And Michelle does want to design more, so watch this space.
And it's so much better than all those horrible video games which are always about racing cars and shooting people.
Well, channeling your feelings into creativity is a much healthier option, Dr. Nick, and that's exactly what one of this year's Archibald finalists did. Mustafa Azam Itabar painted this incredible self-portrait, and Dr. Nick, he's an Iranian refugee.
So the most remarkable thing, Jack, is he created this painting using just a toothbrush and coffee, because when he was in detention, he had no access to paint, so he just had to use whatever was available.
It's extraordinary, Nick. The painting's titled KNS088. As you said, it's the number that he was given during his years in detention. It's seriously inspiring to hear this story.
Yeah. Up next, we will reveal a major new breakthrough in bowel cancer.
And Jade delivers beauty that won't break the bank.
So I was always a snob when it came to makeup. I would all go out there, spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on makeup. My notion now is a little bit more like spend what you want on those products that are staples. Invest in your skincare, anything that touches your scalp, your body or your face. Makeup, you've got a little bit more room to play. Some things like foundation or a black eyeliner that you know you can use perfectly, spend the money on that. There's actually a concealer that you can purchase. It's literally under $5. And a lot of people probably would walk past it due to the price point and thinking, can I really cover dark circles? So I popped it on and instantly this area was brightened. The part that sold me in was it didn't move all day. If you're like me, impulse buyers, sometimes if we're feeling sad, if we're feeling happy, if we're anxious, we need to buy something. What I would say to purchase is a lipstick, a lip liner, maybe a mascara, anything that are pencil, you've got a little bit more of a shelf life. Invest in those products because they're low cost and you will use them. So I'm all for a dual use makeup product. So this is a cream bronzer and I love using a cream bronzer, yes, on the face to contour, but also I love using it as a base to your eyeshadow. So just with a fluffy brush, blending it and using it all the way up to the brow and open. And then on the bottom, pop some underneath also. It's very natural, but it just gives you enough definition that you've got makeup, but you don't have too much on. So my favorite tip is to use a bit of a like cream lip tint on the cheeks, just to add a really nice pop of color that also kind of hydrates at the same time. I'm pressing the lip stain into the cheek, the apples of the cheek, back into the contour. Now that we've done the cheek, I'm going to press it into the lips with the applicator and then to buff it in. If you really are right now struggling financially and you do want some products, try and push yourself to think, where else could I use this? And you'll see it really works.
Some great tips there on how to do makeup without maxing out the credit card. I know you're a fan of your makeup, Dr. Nick. But while we're on the subject of financial checks, what about health checks?
Yes, well, June has been Bowel Cancer Awareness Month, whereas if it was up to me, it would actually be every single month because it's such a treatable disease if it's caught early.
And of course, we have the National Bowel Cancer Screening Program, which is for anyone aged 50 to 74.
Yeah, the kits are sent out every 2 years, and it's so important to do it because 9 out of 10 bowel cancers can be completely cured if they're caught early. But at the moment, fewer than 50% of people actually do the test. So don't leave it sitting on the shelf, just do it.
And researchers are making great strides in the treatment of bowel cancer, especially here in Melbourne, with a new blood test.
When I was a medical student, bowel cancer essentially occurred between the mid-50s and 70s. But today, 10% of the bowel cancers are occurring in people under the age of 50. Indeed, a number of those young people are not only in their 40s, but even in their late 30s. Historically, we either had a very tiny group of genetically predisposed people who might have inherited one of the polyposis syndromes where they have hundreds or even thousands of polyps with a 100% chance of cancer at a younger age. But other than that group, they were all what we call sporadic, i.e. we didn't really know the cause. Now, because we're seeing it in the younger people, we're very concerned that although there might be some genetic changes going on in all of us all our lives, it might be because the foods we're eating today are different than we used to eat.
Regardless of age, over 30% of people develop polyps in their bowel. While not all polyps become cancerous, all bowel cancer arises from polyps.
Every single cell lining our bowel dies after about 10 days and we get a new one. If one cell says, hang on, I ain't going, and it stays there, it will divide into 2 new cells. And those 2 later divide into 4, 8, 16, 32. Hence the polyp is a mushroom growth as it is growing exponentially, not cell by cell. And all of those generations of cells as they grow are becoming abnormal. And we produce what becomes a cancer. And eventually those cells are so abnormal, they separate, penetrate the wall of the bowel by growing through the wall, then get into the lymphatic tissue and the vessels, get into the bloodstream, and then we might be in trouble down the track, if not already.
For those diagnosed with bowel cancer, there's now renewed hope in the search for secondary sites.
There is a blood test recently identified which has shown the DNA from the circulating cancer cell in the blood. So you can say that that patient has a very high risk of implantation of those cells, in which case, yeah, give them chemotherapy, because although we've cured them locally, there's a high likelihood of potential implantation of the circulating DNA from that cancer. But with the new blood test that's available, we might be able to eliminate those that have a negative blood test and not follow them up for recurrence of their cancer.
As bowel cancer is preventable, it's crucial to be aware of it at any age.
Get yourself checked if you've got some blood, and don't ignore it thinking to yourself or even your GP saying it's probably only hemorrhoids. Be checked and be safe.
Great work from our Aussie researchers there, as always. Now, Jo, I sense you and I are familiar with the term the bank of mum and dad.
I've heard it talked about, not so familiar with it myself. But I don't know how anybody buys a house these days without the support from their parents, if they're able to give it.
Well, a 2023 parenting survey into children under 12 found that the average Aussie mum and dad are aiming to save a stunning $33,000 to give to their kids as a deposit to buy their first home.
And that's not really even a deposit, is it? The other thing is more than half of those surveyed were not keen or just weren't able to help their kids out.
And I can empathise with that. It is stressful, isn't it, the idea of wanting to support your kids into their first home. And we are, at the end of the day, all just trying to put food on the table. Up next, Zoe and Hines here are going to teach us how to do exactly that on a budget.
Well, winter can be very tough on the skin. The weather tends to be drier and colder, and this will draw moisture out of the skin. hotter showers, electric blankets, general heating. We also get sicker, run down, and this can lead to a flare-up of very dry and itchy skin conditions. A good skincare plan is the key to having good, healthy skin during winter. I recommend looking for a gentle, soap-free cleanser that doesn't dry or irritate the skin, a good moisturising lotion which will hydrate the skin, and a nourishing cream that will help repair and protect the barrier of the skin. A good moisturiser is one that will leave your skin feeling moist and hydrated, but not greasy or oily or sticky, and it should last 24 hours. A good moisturiser doesn't have to be expensive. I recommend looking at your local chemist for a trusted brand that includes ingredients like colloidal oatmeal. It is a natural product that contains lots of antioxidants and vitamins. It helps to relieve itchy, dry skin, and it contains lipids which are naturally found in the skin layer, and this helps to repair and protect the skin, especially during winter. Just like brushing your teeth, a good skincare plan should be a healthy habit that you get into all year round. I recommend sun protection and using a moisturiser as a bare minimum to have good, healthy skin.
Now, Nick, are you like me in that I absolutely love Japanese food?
Oh, give me an okonomiyaki, that seafood pancake, any day. Just don't ask me to pronounce it properly. But the thing about a lot of Japanese food, all that salty, briny stuff, there's so much salt. It's not great for the blood pressure.
Oh, does that include soy sauce? Because I love soy sauce.
Yeah, and of course, being Japanese, they've come up with a high-tech solution. So Kirin, the beer maker, have produced some electronic chopsticks designed to help us eat less salt.
So the chopsticks deliver an electric current to the tongue that convinces the taste buds they're tasting something salty, even the food has very little in it. That is brilliant.
Yeah, it sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? But don't expect them in restaurants anytime soon because these prototype chopsticks, they have to be cable tied to the diners.
Right.
And they have to wear this clunky electronic control around their wrist. So there's a bit of nibbling of the high tech that has to be done.
Well, from reducing salt and technology to bringing down our weekly food budget, here's Heinzie and Zoe with a couple of cheap and cheerful lunches.
We live in an expensive world, Zoe, and budgets have never been more strained, especially when it comes to spending on everyday necessities like food.
Which makes me sad, Lukey, because sometimes people, when they try and save money, turn to unhealthy and overly processed meals, which inevitably are cheaper.
Not today, my friend, because we're going to whip up some cheap and cheerful lunches. I'm glamming up the humble tuna toastie.
And my leftover barbecue chicken mushroom pasta is restaurant grade without the price tag.
Bargain. Now, whilst we're whipping up some delicious food, can you give me your expert tips on saving money on food without skimping on health or flavour?
Well, we're already doing the right thing, preparing meals from scratch. And it's no secret that pre-prepared meals and eating out for lunch is so much more expensive.
Yet, almost 3 in 4 Aussies purchase lunch, morning tea or coffees whilst at work or on the way to or from work at least once a week. My tip, research. Familiarise yourself with the price of items that you frequently buy. Then you'll get a better understanding of which stores have the best price.
This is particularly true when it comes to fruit and vegetables. The prices can vary based on the season. If they're out of season and they're harder to get, they're going to be more expensive.
Still on fruits and veggies, it is time to buy ugly.
What?
Bear with me. What I mean is misshapen or odd-looking produce tastes the same, but it's often cheaper because it's not as pretty.
Lukey, it's what's on the inside that counts. The concept of buying ugly reduces waste, so it's not only good for your wallet, it's good for the environment.
The main take-home here, planning. Spend some time thinking ahead and exploring your options. Now, it may be more time-consuming, but at the end of the day, you'll have more pennies left over to spend on the things that you love.
Oh my God, I am getting so excited. Okay. What about this? Smoked salmon, beautiful breads, beautiful cheeses, maybe a little champagne.
What do you reckon about just like a massage?
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. I'm so excited.
We've been talking financial health a lot today on the House of Wellness. Now, a little quick whip around before I go. I want to ask you all, what is one thing, no matter how tight the budget, you cannot do without, and a bit of a guilty pleasure that you spend too much money on?
Can't live without Pilates, no matter what, and I spend way too much money on good champagne.
Oh, yes, wine all the way. But actually, Japanese food is probably one of mine. Like, I really enjoy takeout.
No matter what, you're going to eat it?
Yeah, I think like that's sort of like a treat, you know?
Yeah,
Sort
okay.
of,
I think I'd be with you on the Japanese food, but for me, it's probably just chocolate and crosswords.
Crosswords. Can't live without
Can't live without a
crossword.
crossword.
Extraordinarily nerdy from you, Dr. Nick. Can't live without coffee and spend way too much money on holidays, and which I would hard to give
You
up.
can't spend too much money on holidays, Das.
No. Well, that's all we've got time for today.
You can catch myself and Gerald Quigley on House of Wellness Radio every Sunday.
And Wanderlust True North is fast approaching. Leaders in the mindfulness, yoga and plant-based food space will hit Melbourne, Sydney and the Gold Coast this September, and tickets are on sale now.
That will be a great event, one not to miss. Good to see you as always, Joe, and to Jack and to Dr. Nick Carr. And thanks to the team from the Royal Botanic Gardens here in Cranbourne and our friends at Chemist Warehouse. We'll see you next time.